All right. Well, thank you for joining us for the next edition here of the Navigating the Coronavirus Economy series. My name's Tom Dufour with Big Sky Franchise Team. And thank you for tuning in. We have an excellent episode for you here today. And we have Anthony Licata with the MFV Expositions, who is going to be talking about trade shows. And for those of you that are not familiar with franchise shows, or maybe you are familiar with the franchise trade show space, the MFV Expositions hosts the largest events in the United States, and they host some of the largest events around the world as well. This is the foremost expert in the world on franchise expos and franchise trade shows and all things of bringing people and franchising together in one place. And so, given the state of the current world we're living in with the coronavirus economy and things that we're going through right now with some areas on lockdown, some not, some opening up, some closing back up, and kind of everything in between, it's been a little wild and a wild roller coaster ride. So, what I thought about sharing for today I had a conversation with Anthony here a few weeks back, and we said, hey, this is very interesting. I think our clients and folks would really appreciate an opportunity to learn about what's happening, especially in the exhibition space and face-to-face contacts. And I know for many of you tuning in, there's a good chance that we met you at a trade show, and very good chance that it was at one of the MFV exposition trade shows and events. So, with that intro being said, I would like to go ahead and turn things over to our guest today, Anthony Licata, who will be able to fill you in a little bit more about his role and the MFV. So, Anthony, thanks for being here today.
Well, I certainly appreciate you inviting me. And, we don't get a chance to speak in mass unless we're at shows. So I truly appreciate the opportunity to talk to your contacts there and the people on the other end of this Zoom. And I really do appreciate it to be in this type of forum. And to Tom's point, as he mentioned, our lives have changed so much over the course of the last, let's say, 4 or 5 months. Um, I know personally and business-wise, we've all had to really pivot dramatically. And I will say this, people tend to react very quickly, especially in a business environment. Little of my background, I've been in events and trade shows for 30 years. And way back in the 90s when I started, this whole thing of, I want to say, what are the threats to face-to-face trade shows? The onset of the internet and people talking about virtual shows and, oh my God, what are we going to do face-to-face? And it never really transpired because I think the need for face-to-face events is truly critical and it just resonates with people. I don't think there'll ever be a time that face-to-face events will not be relevant. It's just human nature to want to meet somebody. And I can say this from personal experience. When you meet somebody, you can probably assess them in the first 2 minutes of if they're interested in the product, if they have the right qualifications. All the things that go into that face-to-face really are critical. And what we've seen happen over the past few months is we've had to pivot so quickly because face-to-face, in the trade show space and in the rest of the United States, it didn't exist for the first 3 months. We were all sheltered in. As you see, this is my living room. I have my cat over here. My son is in the basement. He's a sound engineer. You might hear some music in the background. He's doing a project right now. So everything has changed so much for everybody. And I think those that embrace it will win. Here's the bottom line. We don't know what the end of this is. We just have to take it step by step. And I'll use our events as the the core of how that's affected me, because when we first heard about these events having to, we do face-to-face, as Tom said, we do 5 events in the US. The first one to be affected was our Nashville event in March. And we were getting very close to that event. They had 2 things happen. They had a tornado, and then, the COVID was becoming an issue. So we were going down there supporting the efforts for their tornado recovery, and we were doing food drives and trying to help the community. And as we got closer, that became part of our goal. We wanted to help out Nashville. And reluctantly, we had to postpone the event because the COVID situation became so critical. The rumblings out there were, are we going to get people to the event? Really, what's the bottom line? What do? We connect buyers and sellers. It's that way. It's been that way for over 100 years. That's the core of what trade shows are. Buyers and sellers. There's nothing more to that. Getting them together in one forum and having the ability to see more than just one person. That's what we do. And when we had to postpone it, we had to react because of the situation. How do we attack this? As I said before, these virtual shows were always in the background, and quite honestly, that's what we had to look at. What's the next step to get these buyers and sellers together? So I'll switch to a couple of slides here. I'm not going to go into the minute details of what each slide is, but just from an overview point of view, we did react very quickly. MFV, as Tom said, we've been doing our franchise shows for over 30 years. We are certainly the leaders in franchise shows, uniting franchisors with franchisees. We've been doing it a long time. We've connected thousands of franchises, and that's our expertise, and it was always done in a face-to-face manner. So what happened? We had to change gears. We had to look at virtual as an option. And that's precisely what we did. Our first show was back in May, and we certainly took it on with the attitude that we really have to keep this engine running. I'm looking at everybody out there in the franchise world. They're all in different places, but what do we need to do to address the trade show market? And virtual was the only option at the time. So our goal was to present the best possible way of connecting the franchisor with the franchisee, with the marketing and the knowledge that we know. And we just kind of ported that over to a virtual environment. And we're not the only ones doing this. Literally every trade show out there is in this virtual mode right now. It is what's happening. People are making the changes. They are making they're getting to understand that this is the way that information will flow, at least for now. And we will do the best possible job to present the franchisor to the franchisee and back and forth. And we looked at all the options that were out there, and the virtual platform that we chose seemed to be the best way to get that connection in place as it stands right now. So going back, we had we had 4 shows that we basically postponed till the fall. And just like everybody else, we're waiting and waiting to see what is opening up, what is going on in the event, the hotel, the travel, all those industries. We are so tied together, and one affects the other just as strongly as you can imagine. We're all affected by that. I haven't traveled since March, and it's partly because of restrictions, but the bottom line is what did we do to try to make these connections? So we took our 4 events and we looked at them individually and said, do we do 4 standalone events as many companies are doing, or do we look at this as I want to say more of a consolidated effort? The first one that we did, which was virtual, we did back in May. And what we looked at from the virtual standpoint was, okay, what does the bottom line franchisor need to do? It's really an information exchange, just like any conversation you'd have on the phone. but we want to bring that closer to the trade show experience. So just like all the things and the bytes and bits that you get at trade shows, we try to address in our virtual events. So when you enter a trade show, you walk on a show floor, you get to shake hands, you get to talk to somebody, you get to receive information from these folks on the other side of the aisle in the booths. So how do you recreate that in a virtual space? And that's what the challenge is. And how do you make that as potentially intimate as possible? We're doing what we're doing right now is how we try to achieve some of those things. Tom's been doing this for a while with these Zoom meetings. And I think every single company out there using Zoom meetings is helping the efforts of what we do as a virtual trade show. So we truly appreciate everybody coming around to the virtual platform and understanding this is the way that we have to do it. So within our events, we basically created a virtual booth environment. The virtual booth environment, for all intents and purposes, is a more or less a page of information, which is what the franchisor would be discussing with the franchisee as they came into the booth. You know, the franchisor is going to talk about, you know, some of his success stories, some of the franchises that are successful out there. He's going to use things like quotes, and he might have videos running. That's going to bring the intimacy home, and that's what we want to create in this virtual environment. So within our booths, we do provide these capabilities of videos and conversations through Zoom. Just to kind of back up a second, our first efforts, we did a 3-day event in the virtual environment. We did 80,000 page views, 8,600 attendees, as well as 5,800 leads presented to the 130 plus exhibitors that participated. I want to pat myself on the back as well as the rest of the MFV team. This was truly a great experience in the virtual world. We've made comparisons with the other virtual events that were starting out, and we certainly hit the mark, but we never were satisfied with that as the be all and end all on the hard statistics, let's say. So as we went down the line, we looked at all the other events that we have, and we decided we need to make it the best possible virtual experience that we can provide. And we had our 4 events in the fall. So what we decided to do was take all those campaigns that we had in place for those fall shows, combine them into one mega event. So just so you know where we were, we had Houston, Nashville, Phoenix, and New York. And we already had dedicated campaigns. So from a virtual standpoint, these marketing campaigns were already in place. All we had to do was do somewhat of a pivot from the face-to-face marketing to the virtual marketing, which is a relatively easy thing to do. And that's the process we're in right now. So we have a mega event coming up in October. All our efforts are dedicated to getting those virtual attendees to this event. When I mentioned before, it was 3 days. What we found was 3 days was great. But we didn't feel we accomplished all our goals, which was education on the franchisor point of view and bringing enough franchisees, enough information within those 3 days. So what we decided to do was extend the time. And now looking at the October event, since it's 4 distinct marketing campaigns, it's going to increase the timing to it's going to increase the time to 2 weeks. So we do believe within those 2 weeks, there's going to be enough education to come back to. There's going to be enough exhibitors to basically go back to, do some research, go back and ask questions. We encourage the exhibitors at this point to use Zoom as their way of communication, just like we're doing with predestined meetings and times. And also, one of the things that we're doing that might be somewhat unique to our industry is we're creating artificial intelligence matchmaking. So this is a way for the franchisor to reach out to the potential franchisee prior to the show, during the show, and after the show, to make sure that all the boxes are covered as far as the franchisee qualifications, the franchisor's viewpoint of who is qualified, and allowing these people to communicate and allowing them to have viable conversations. So our artificial intelligence matchmaking is going to be the thing that really makes a difference. So for example, Tom is looking for clients. He's going to be able to reach out to a specific demographic, whether it be financial or interest from an industry perspective, and match with him. Tom reaches out, contacts that potential franchisee. He puts the meeting out there. They can either accept or reject. They can in turn go back the other way and say, I would like to speak to this potential franchisor because this is a very attractive franchise that I'd like to have. The franchisor then has the ability to either accept or reject in the same way. So I think the qualification process of what we do in our virtual shows is going to be a little more intense than just cruising around and just clicking here and there. So the qualification and the ultimate lead that you get out of this event should be a much higher quality and a much more viable potential franchisor or franchisee. It goes both ways, as I said before. And what are some of the things that we need to do? We need to educate people. In our first event, and this is all virtual events now, in our first event, we might not have had the ability within 3 days to capture the entire franchisor, franchisee mindset because they were clicking around so frantically to get information. We've extended the education into very specific categories now. And what we found is through our post-show surveys, we reached out to the franchisee and franchisor and asked them, what do you guys want more of? And it was education. So for example, there may be a track we're working on women in franchising, minorities in franchising. The standards will be there, 101 of franchising, the legalities of franchising, what you need to know from a franchisee standpoint and a franchisor standpoint. It's going to be a dual mode tracks for both sides of the equation. So it'll give plenty of time for those folks involved to get the information they need. And there'll always be follow-up. So one of the things that we found from a trade show standpoint is there's always that post-show follow-up that we want to offer. And that will be available through the communication methods that we provide to the actual both sides of the equation, so they can reach out before, during, and after, as I said before. So we think the communication part of it is very important, and the follow-up is very important, as it always has been. One of the other parts of what we do from a perspective of what do we provide, we're going to provide a very thorough table of contents or exhibitor search capabilities. I put the screen up here. This gives you an idea of how people will search for the types of franchises, and that can be by financial commitments, that can be by industry commitments, that can be by just interest in general. So we'll drill down into lists, and it'll get those franchisees some of the most intense selects that they can go to first, and it kind of allows them to schedule out their day in a better way and utilize their time. From the point of view of what happens when a franchisee gets to the show, this is more or less their booth. I'm not going to go through too many of the details, but you'll be able to see here, the booth will be set up with just general information, specifics of what the franchisee is going to be looking for. How much do I have to spend? I call it their demographic information or their pedigree information. This will allow them to see the success stories of the franchisor. They'll post videos. This is where you'll see some of the, where their meetings will occur. We can put links in here. It'll have links back to their website. and it'll have places where they can physically reach out to the physical franchisor and click here for more information. It'll be real time. So for you franchisors on the other side of the phone there or the Zoom, you can have real-time conversations with these people during the event. So we're going to provide you with all the capabilities of a face-to-face event and real-time communication right through our event. Some of the statistics from our previous events, who the people are, you can see the sweet spot is in that 100,000 to 500,000. That's been traditionally where we are, and it's been the strength, if you would, of the MFV events. There are other events out there for multi-unit, and there are other events out there for just getting started. But our strength is in that, I want to say that sweet spot, $100,000 to $500,000, which is where a lot of our franchisors are now. And that's what I think draws a lot of the attendees to the event, because it's in that spot that they can truly look at. You know, we'll have this capabilities for you as exhibitors to really have an intimate experience by doing some of the things you'll see on this screen here. We'll customize each booth for you to give you that most personal experience, and allow it to be your brand and branded as you see fit to get the sizzle to the actual franchisee. And that's going to be up to you. I will say this: your Zoom presentations will make a difference, just like your face-to-face presentations. They are what makes the difference, and I highly recommend you know, putting together a little presentation, but keep it free form. Keep it open for people to jump in, just like you guys. If you want to ask a question, you're going to be able to do that of me, and make sure that you have that microphone open so people can jump in and it's relevant at the time of your presentation. It really makes a big difference. I sat in on at least 15 of my exhibitor presentations, and the ones that really resonated were those where they interacted with the attendee. And just like Tom puts here, you know, we like interactions. We like what happens, so we can get a feel for what's going on a real-time basis. So in the virtual space, as I said, we're going to have both, you know, franchising your business for the franchisor who's just new to this world, and that's going to have some legal tracks, some financial tracks, what you need to know as a franchisor. And then buying a franchise, obviously, for all the franchisees, there's going to be some people that are, let's just put it out there, they're out of work. They want a change in their life. That's a fact right now. And I think it's going to bring the kind of attendees that are looking to make those life-changing events happen for them right now. I think that's what I'm talking to right now, is from a franchisee perspective. They've been out of work. They happen to have some financial backing that they can make a change in their life, and maybe they can look at a $300,000 franchise right now. This could be the best time for them for life-changing events, and I think franchising is where it could be happening. We're supported by tremendous publications moving forward. I think that's key for any virtual event, is to make sure you get the message out there. These are our supporting partners and publications that we're going to be utilizing, and we're currently utilizing. And we will continue with all the methods that we had for our face-to-face events, but we're going to more or less enhance that through social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. We're going to hit on all cylinders to make sure everybody out there is, for all intents and purposes, going to be highlighted in every media that we can provide to you. So we'll assist you in that. And I think we're not alone on that. I think everybody's doing that right now. So that's our virtual event. That's how we have to go about things. And just to kind of overview it, we are in virtual mode right now. Our intent is to truly get back to face-to-face, but I think just like everybody operating in these times, virtual is where we have to be up until everything can open up and we can have the green light to go back to the face-to-face. And we have all our dates and all our events pushed into 2021. So we do have commitments on the way of venues, and we have commitments in the way of our commitments on the our contracts are still existing. So for all intents and purposes, we plan on 2021 to be our back to face-to-face events, but we will utilize virtual until we're told otherwise. So I just want to put that out there. That's hopefully our solution to what you guys are going through right now as far as keeping the engine running, and virtual is by no stretch a viable alternative to what we had 6 months ago. And I'll just put it out there. Do you guys have any questions, Tom? Do you have anything to add from your perspective of what you've been hearing?
Well, I mean, I guess, you'd mentioned this is the one thing that I'd like to know about, and I'm sure some of the attendees are wondering here. What are the internal, as much as you're able to share, conversations about the reality of live events coming back again? What are you guys seeing, hearing? I know the schedule is out for 2021, but there was a fall schedule out too.
Yes.
And so what is the reality of this in your opinion, and what you guys are seeing, and not just for the MFV and your franchise expos, but also for the future, just other live events of any kind?
Right. I read something that was very encouraging the other day, and it was about the Restaurant Association event, which takes place in Chicago. The encouraging thing that I read was they did an online re-sign from 2020 to 2021. It's going to be in May of 2021 at McCormick Place in Chicago. That's a massive convention center for those of you that know convention centers. They got a 75% re-sign. So I'm using them only because of the scope and the size of that event. People are craving to get back to face-to-face. I don't think there's any shortage right now of you and I wanting to get back to face-to-face. We are all in this, I almost want to say day-to-day mode. I think the intent of everybody out there is we want face-to-face. It's up to rules, regulations, government restrictions or not as to what we can do. I know there are certain parts of the country that are opening up. I have a very close relationship with the people at GES in Freeman. I actually worked for GES for a few years. For those of you that don't know, GES is general contractor. They're the people that we use to set up the booths, to bring the electric in, all the behind the scenes stuff that happens. They do shows all across the country, all across the world. And my recent conversation with them about 2 weeks ago was that they are certainly seeing some opening, some openings in the future. They actually talked to me about events that they see happening in 2021 in January, because it's on the board. All the plans are moving forward with these events until they're told otherwise. So in everybody's mind, everybody has the intent of the shows in 2021 happening. And I think basically what we're up against right now is the wait and see. Is there a spike in any of the virus in that particular area? And basically the sentiment of a lot of people are, I'll go to the show. There'll be plenty of precautions put in place by show management, venue, as well as just the industry in general about how to go about doing these events. So the support is overwhelming on getting back to those shows. Everybody wants to.
And Anthony, I'm going to interrupt you for a second here, because I think I'm not worried as much about the business community coming back, because I think that the exhibitors, they want to be there. They want to come in and be, so 75% renewal at the National Restaurant Show, that I'm not surprised by that. I think that the exhibitors want to come. But what I am curious about is, do you have any indication of what's going on with the attendees, the people who actually come to the events, why the exhibitors want to be there? Are you getting any indication, any signs, can you tell us any data or anything that you're seeing on your end?
There's no hard data. It's anecdotal. It's conversations at this point, because nobody has, I shouldn't say nobody. There are surveys out there. Generally, people are in a wait and see mode as far as what they're comfortable with. I think what you're going to see, and we'll probably do this as well, when we have our physical show, I'm pretty sure we will back it up with a virtual show as well, running concurrently. And this will allay any of the fears of those folks who would rather stay home, but they know that the show's out there, and give them the option of both sides of it. I think we're seeing the same thing from a corporate standpoint as we are from an attendee standpoint. Corporate is, you know what, I'm not too sure I want my staff out there doing a trade show.
Right.
Because their liabilities and all those things that go into, these are people that work for me and now I'm liable for them. So we'll have some pushback from corporate, but then we'll have the ability to do it virtually to satisfy the lead gen. I think as a general rule, most people are actively looking at the past January, February timeframe. That's when I seem to see things start opening up as far as people are talking about being ready. But I think it's all based on what we're going to see in the fall and what's going to actually happen as of the new year, and
Sure.
what their gut feeling is. I
Well,
think
well,
more
what,
people are out there, the better we are.
oh, great. Well, thank you. And Anthony, I think that's a really great point that you made. And for people tuning in, I don't know what other trade show organizations are doing, but that's a great idea that you're implementing there. In any live event is being basically run kind of as a the backup plan is that virtual event is running concurrently
Right,
at the same time. So in the event something were to happen,
right.
that there's already kind of it reminds me of if there's your rain site, in the event that your outdoor event, the family picnic gets rained out. Well, where's the rain site? Oh, well, it's in the gymnasium across the street. Okay, well, there's the plan for us. If there's a rain out in for the event, we've got our rain out destination. So that's really, really great.
Well, and we have to, because just like everybody, we don't have the answers. And even if we were to be told, come May next year, you can have your show, you can have up to 7,000 people. There's still going to be people that aren't going to come. We know that. So we have to offer an alternative. We have to give them the ability to do it in a different way and still gather the information. So that was the game plan moving forward in the fall. But when we decided we couldn't do anything as far as physical events, compiling them into one mega event was the only solution we had. So it's still going to be something we have to consider long term.
Well, that's really, really interesting. I think that's very, I think that's very wise, and it's interesting to see how you're pivoting in this and how you're reacting and what the MFV is doing. And look, I know I've been a customer of the MFV. Goodness, I've been coming to shows for 16 years, I think, for your franchise expos, and as an exhibitor for pretty much every year during that time. And so it's really interesting to hear what you're doing. And so I appreciate what you're doing and the kind of the backup scenario there.
Sure.
So what I'd like to do is open things up for some questions. I didn't see anything come through on the chat box here, but if there are questions, type it into the chat box. We've got a fairly small group here. I'd love for you to unmute. And while that's happening, Anthony, why don't we and we'll make sure, by the way, for everyone, this is recorded. We're going to share this, and Anthony, we'll make sure in that we list some information. But how would people get a hold of you if they wanted to learn some more information here?
Sure. They can get in touch with me through my email, anthony.licata, that's first name, last name, at comexposium.com. And let's see if I have it on my last page here. This is my contact information, direct dial to the office, which is now home / living room and or 2 days a week in the office. But all this information always obviously makes it back to me. It's amazing.
Perfect.
It's amazing how we've all pivoted so quickly. And if you all recall back in March, it was a tough week, right? When we all started working at home, but now it seems second nature. So I want to use that as the model for what we're going to see in events, because I think there's always this learning curve. And for now, the virtual events are truly going to be where we get our information. And I think people are very resilient, and this is going to be the way that people kind of start thinking over the next couple of months. And I think it'll all work out in the end. But for now, we're toughing it out, and we're getting the information through the resources that we have available.
Great. Well, let's open it up. Thank you for sharing that, Anthony. If you're on and you're in a not a terribly noisy area, go ahead. Feel free to ask some questions, unmute, get Anthony's perspective on whatever it might be that you might have.
Hi, Anthony. This is Brian Arnett. I've got a question about the venues with the, are they going to be like live so you can see people?
When we were moving forward with New York, so we utilized, we were going to utilize the Javits Convention Center as we've done for the last few years. It would be a face-to-face event. You would actually come into the venue, but what they requested that we had to do is we actually had to spread the booths out. So what we would have had is 350 to 400 booths in, let's say it's 50,000 square feet. We were going to actually have to take more space and spread booths out more. And then there would be certain rules that were put in place for social distancing. So it would have been a face-to-face event. It would have been under restrictions on how you as the exhibitor could interact with the attendees. But I think as we're seeing right now, people are certainly out and about. People are in stores. People are starting to go to restaurants. So I think people are starting to find their own space. And I think hopefully that answers your question, but yes, it would have been a face-to-face event, and it would have been under certain provisions as to how you can interact with the attendees.
Well, Anthony or Brian, I want to make sure, were you asking about being able to see the person? Were you talking about the online event where it's
Yes.
kind of okay. So Anthony, he's, I think, asking when you're at the virtual event,
Right.
and someone clicks on your booth.
Mm-hmm.
Is there kind of this live option feature where if they click on, if let's say I'm working a Big Sky franchise booth and someone clicks on our booth while we're there, does my camera turn on and, hey, here's Tom hanging out, sitting here on the camera, waving to you saying, hey there, Mr. or Mrs. Attendee? How does, I think that's what Brian was referring to. How does that work?
Okay. So we went through a couple of different scenarios. Right now, as far as our virtual event, we don't have that. What you're talking about is more or less a chat box. So that would require you to be available 24/7 for 2
Right.
weeks. We didn't go in that direction because what we found is some of the other events that had the chat box, it put a lot of strain on you as the exhibitor. And honestly, you don't want to be manning a booth or having your staff there when there's other things to be done. So what we've done is the live presentations are scheduled, just like Tom did with this meeting, 12 o'clock on Friday. Franchise XYZ is going to be doing their presentation. You can have predefined times, and you can do them as many times as you want during the course of 2 weeks. I don't know if you want to do it every day. I don't know if you want to do it every other day, but it will be through a Zoom chat or platform of your choice. Tom, you did one at the last virtual
Yeah.
show,
Mm-hmm.
your Zoom meeting.
Yes.
So that hopefully maybe you can talk to that. Did that work out for you as opposed to being in a chat box or waiting for somebody?
Yeah, it's interesting. We've participated in several online events that have been through through MFV, through other franchise shows, and through several non-franchise shows that we just kind of were either attendees or exhibitors just to kind of test it out, just to see what the experience was. And I have not seen one where there's the live like video chat to the booth. I haven't seen that. And I think you're right. I think it is very difficult to kind of manage that. So having the presentation pre-planned, it gives you a time and something to focus on. So that makes sense. I think that makes sense. So Brian, thank you. That's a great question. Do we have any other questions from any of the attendees that are tuning in that are maybe thinking of participating in a virtual event, or maybe even just some feedback that you've participated in a virtual event and maybe something you liked or didn't like?
Yeah, I'd love to hear anybody. I'll add to that point that you just made. The virtual events, as I said, they've been around a long time, but I think everybody is truly perfecting for their particular industries what works. So in the franchise environment, what works for us might not work. I came out of the power engineering industry years ago. It's very technical. They require a lot of information, and the educational portion of that is much more important than seeing the bits and bytes about a pump in a power plant. They know they can get that information. I think in our industry, there's a lot of personality. You as the potential franchisor want to make sure the person on the other end of the conversation is going to be right for your franchise. So I think what happens, there are certainly going to be differences between all virtual events. And there's going to be more specifics on, the technical events as opposed to what we do, I think, in personality, experience within let's say it's food industry or service industry. That's going to be the criteria that makes a difference. And I think that's why the Zoom meetings that we're going to, that we push for you as franchisors to have, that's where I think the rubber hits the road and you get a chance to really qualify. So if you do decide that, what we offer is right for you, we can walk you through the Zoom setups and what's worked in the past and the meetings I've seen that have worked. So I'd be happy to kind of consult with you on any of those finer points.
Great.
Hey, Tom, it's Jim Romano.
Yes.
Not really a question, but more of a comment. I've done a number of expos, not from a franchise perspective, but just to, sales expos and bridal wedding shows and so on and so forth. And one of the downsides of the live without having the virtual is you're limited to the number of people who can actually fit in a booth and be effective. So you've got hundreds of people walking and a number of people stopping. But if there's 2 or 3 people in your booth, you're trying to carry on a conversation with someone. There's noise, there's distractions. And then you have the people who want to talk to you, but don't want to wait and keep leaving. Running it concurrently with Zoom, to me, is really attractive because now they're one-on-one, there's no distractions. And literally, if you needed 8 people to support the interest you have, you can have 8 people not even, 1,000 miles away answering questions and being more one-on-one. So the live event is great. I've done many of them, but doing it concurrently with a Zoom is super attractive because I just think you'll reel more fish into the boat, so to speak, than letting them swim on by. So that's probably preaching to the choir here, but it's just something that I wanted to add.
That's great feedback. That's great feedback, Jim. I think that's really, really well said.
Hear that. I am so thrilled to hear that. And I'll bring up something else, which from a trade show standpoint, we've all been to trade shows and you walk through the aisles, somebody grabs you, somebody's giving out a sample, somebody's doing something that's grabbing your attention. It might not be anything you're interested in, but it's grabbing your attention. What happens at the virtual shows, and this is from the attendee perspective, they came into this and they're very focused on what they want to see. The distractions are much less in their face from a perspective of the live face-to-face. So I think they're good on both sides. Don't get me wrong. I love the energy of the face-to-face. But when you get a prospect or a potential franchisee at a virtual event, they know what they want coming in, or at least they funnel it down when they're on that search page as to what franchises they're interested in. Food, service, lawn care, whatever it is, they'll know coming in what they want. So they go right to it. When they walk in a trade show, that big booth right at the front of the show, it's going to grab their attention. It's going to take 10 minutes to get through. They're going to see a food sample over there. Maybe they'll want a food sample, but they're not interested in pretzels. It's less distracting on the virtual side. So I really appreciate the fact that you like the virtual and the physical trade show, which is great. I couldn't be happier to hear that.
Yeah, we've never run them concurrently. We've never done the you know, like I said, at the same time, but we have been at an expo, wedding expo, where it seems like on the Zoom side of it, everybody's on a level playing field. The franchisees really in control. They can drive where they want to go, where they want to click, who they want to talk to, without you know, all of the noise and the distraction. We had a booth next to a DJ one year, and you couldn't carry on a conversation with how loud it was. So people were stopping, but there were so many distractions with the live event that, in my opinion, wasn't as successful if it had been laid out differently, so to speak. You don't have those issues online. So, and I'm not, you know, you're not paying me to say this. It's just an honest opinion. So
I love, you know, there's going to be advantages and disadvantages no matter what media you choose. And it depends on what side you're on. I've actually used your exact words, which is level playing field. So, you know, there's no more of a level playing field than coming to a physical website and having to pick and choose. What sets you apart is what they see in that actual booth. The level playing field then changes when there's a testimonial and a video. That's why I recommend people putting the sizzle on that page, because that's what's going to get people jazzed about your franchise. So just like in a face-to-face conversation, that's where the differences come in. But the level playing field is right from the get-go, and I do appreciate it.
Anthony, this is Tom. I had a question for you, or maybe more of a comment, but I was just thinking about, my question is, are you planning to keep when live events start again, it sounded like you plan to keep that concurrent virtual show running with that live event. Is that kind of, for the foreseeable future, something you're planning to do, or do you not know yet?
You know what? I don't want to commit to anything right now.
Yeah.
But what I was,
good answer.
we knew that going into this, we were going to have both. And just like you guys just said, they're like, you know, there was such an outpouring of, wow, that's really cool, in light of this situation. And then one of the franchisors said, why didn't you guys ever do that before? And, you know, face-to-face events want to really focus on face-to-face. We want bodies in the hall, because you guys all know, we want to see crowded aisles. So we never wanted to take anything away from that excitement of those crowds. But right now, I think everybody does realize that, you know, we have to pivot. It might not be about crowds anymore. It's about the quality of the attendee. And the whole thought is, for the immediate future, we're going to have to do both.
Yeah.
Long term, it might just say, let's do it. Let's keep it going. You know?
Yeah. Well, and just as an exhibitor, and, you know, we basically participate in all of your expos and all of your shows in the US, and have for many years. And you know, you never know when there's inclement weather, unforeseen weather conditions that keep people away, or I forget, there was one, I don't remember, but there was the World Series or something, some major sporting event that was going on. And, the city was in just, they were pumped up for their, whatever baseball team or whatever, but, they kind of jammed in the downtown or by the convention hall. And so it kind of, but, with the concurrent, I like that, because if there happens to be a something that goes on, and with live events, there's bound to be a something that happens. So I think that's a really nice touch for the short term, for sure. And, as you consider and see how that goes long term for you guys, but that's really, really great.
Yep.
Great. Any other questions while we have Anthony on the line? All right, and I don't see anything coming through on the chat box. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Again, Anthony Licata with MFV Expositions, and their organization, again, runs the largest franchise shows in the country. They've been doing it, seems like forever, but for over 30 years. And, definitely if you're going to be participating in expos, you're going to want to be a part of their show. And Anthony, this has been great content. I really appreciate it. And if for those of you that dialed in the middle of the presentation here, we will be posting this. So we are recording, and we will post this. It should be up here probably early next week, Monday or Tuesday. And Anthony, any parting words for you to share with the folks while we have them?
I'm thrilled to be doing this. I know this is difficult for everybody, and let's just put it out there. This isn't an easy time. Our goal at MFV is to provide you guys with the best opportunity to grow your business right now. I mean, I don't want to get too salesy, but we truly do believe that. And we wouldn't be doing it for 30 years if we didn't believe in that. So our interests are truly your interests. And if there's a way that we can help, if there's a way that we can enhance what you're doing either now or looking down the line, please give me a call. I won't be a crazy salesperson with you, I promise. I'll just have a long conversation, and we'll do whatever we can to hopefully make your business what you want it to be. And I truly appreciate Tom inviting me on this to be able to give that message out there.
Well, Anthony, thank you so much. Thank you all for tuning in on the Navigating the Coronavirus Economy series that we've been hosting. It's wild to believe, for 5 months now. And thank you all. Have a great rest of your day, a great weekend, and let's keep fighting the good fight. Thank you all.
Thank you, Tom.
Take care.